Hello, everyone. You know what time it is. It is time for Source Radio Network with Kathy B on Healthy Living. And we have just called into the show and we are going live now.
Good evening, Source Nation. Good evening, and welcome to Healthy Living. I'm your host, Kathy B, and tonight we have some great information that we're going to be sharing with you. Of course, you all know that the last couple of weeks we have been doing a wonderful series with Dr. Julissa Hernandez, and of course, tonight we have another topic that we're going to speak with you because this is the third week in the series, and tonight's topic is all about proper frequency of sex. That's right, proper frequency of sex. Now, all of the information that we have been sharing with you, Source Nation, is coming from Dr. Julissa's brand new book, which is the naturopathic approach to fertility. Now, I also want to let you all know, of course, we're speaking on fertility, but it's all about reproductive health and how we can take care of our reproductive system, especially if we're talking about planning families. So all the information and more is coming from the book, once again, The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility. And, of course, we're speaking on reproductive health. You can find that information on pages 136 through 141. So definitely you want to stay tuned because we're doing some wonderful and amazing things. Over the next 10 weeks, we're going to be speaking about the preservation of sex. So tune in as we elaborate each week on information that can help heighten your sexual experience. And, of course, I want to let you guys know that tonight's broadcast is brought to you by some amazing sponsors, and they are Meet My Type for Matchmaking, Blend to Blend, Juice Bar Boutique, Urban Grandstand Digital, and New Covenant of Praise Worship Center. Of course, we have about 35 minutes before we leave the live. The telephone number to reach us is 619-924-0933. Again, 619-924-0933. And, of course, I have my amazing friend here in the studio with me, Dr. Julissa Hernandez. How are you this evening? And welcome to Healthy Living.
I'm feeling amazing tonight here with you, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to more of this taboo talk that only you and I can do live like this.
I know. I am enjoying it, and thank you so much for coming back in tonight and definitely speaking on another great topic. But before we start tonight's conversation, if you will, please, if you could take a moment just to introduce yourself to all the Source Nation family, and especially everyone that's new listening in, that would be great.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me once again, Kathy. Hello, Source Radio family. I'm Dr. Julissa Hernandez, naturopathic doctor, practicing now for over 22 years. Am a teacher of natural medicine and international speaker of natural medicine as well, and author of the book, The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility, radio and television personality, and now honored to be part of this amazing platform here on Source Radio Network with all of you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Dr. Julissa, thank you again for coming on tonight. And, of course, Source Nation, we are going to be speaking from Dr. Julissa's new book, The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility, and discussing reproductive health and how we can really begin to take care of our bodies, especially if we're thinking about families, wanting to have a family. So tonight's conversation is all about proper frequency of sex. Again, tune into the pages of 136, 141, and that way you can keep up with us as we go through our 10 weeks in regards to sex and the topics that we're going to bring up. So tonight's conversation, Dr. Julissa, is all about proper frequency of sex. Before we talk about this particular topic, you know, I always like to do some form of research. And I came up with something that was very interesting, and I want to see if it actually correlates with what you're speaking about in your book. And the article that I had the opportunity to read was all about how much sex is healthy in a relationship. And in the article, it stated that you actually need to have sex more than one time during the week to have a healthy sexual relationship. So let me read something to you, Dr. Julissa,
Okay.
and that way we can try to see if it correlates with what you were writing.
Yes.
So, of course, Source Nation, anytime that I source any material, it's coming from Time Magazine. Of course, I'll make sure that the link will go out on Facebook, and you can read it at your leisure. But the article states, here's how much sex you should have every single week. Now, it's stated that sex and health goes hand in hand, and research has said that it is linked to a slimmer waistline, a stronger heart, a lower risk for prostate and breast cancer. It also is a boon for mental health, so sex is associated with a lower rate of depression and a better mood. Mm-hmm. But Americans today are having less of it than Americans a decade ago. According to just this released article, it stated that from 2010 to 2014, the average American adult had sex 9 fewer times per year than Americans did from 2000 to 2004. That dropped in frequency, which was as steeper for married couples who lived together. They had sex 16 fewer times a year. Now, what does that sound like to you, Dr. Julissa, and is that appropriate, especially if you're trying to have a healthy sex life?
Well, first off, it is absolutely necessary in a relationship for us to have those moments of intimacy, those moments of physical intimacy. And the reason why we're discussing this is because it's also seen in a traditional medicine that is actually over 5,000 years old, like in Chinese medicine. What we're actually discussing here is that it's the prescriptions of life preservation, and it is seen that for life preservation, if one is in a relationship, that it is necessary to have that physical intimacy in one's life. So I do feel sad to hear that it has become so much less in today's world, but I absolutely agree with everything you've read there, that it actually helps with alleviating depression, because when we have touch, we've seen the healing properties of how actually important it is for someone to have love, be surrounded by caring individuals when they're in a state of illness or whatever it may be. And so just to be able to have touch and to have intimacy, to have love surrounding them, but most definitely that physical part is necessary for good life preservation. So I'm saddened to hear that, but yes, I agree. Depression, helping alleviate that, definitely knowing that sexual activity is going to burn calories. That explains the slimmer waistline too, and so on, and found in the study. So yes, I agree with all those points.
Okay, awesome. Mm-hmm. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the fact that if you're wanting to have a family, how often should you be having sex during the week?
Well, as I stated, for example, in that Principle 3 in my book, I have shared how it is actually seen that the quality of sperm decreases if a man is having sex at least 3 to 4, more than 4 times a week. And so I know that may sound shocking, but then people say, oh my God, but to have sex, to have a baby, you have to have a lot of sex. And it is something I've heard various times. And yes, that is the case. However, as I stated here, and I have shared, that having too much sex can actually harm sperm quality during the time of strengthening and balancing both your bodies, both you the lady, both you the man, with herbal therapy programs, right diet, lifestyle changes, and so on. I recommend that the intimacy portion of the sexual intercourse, when you're trying to conceive, be reserved for at least those 9 days that the woman enters an ovulation cycle, which I detail that very much in the last chapter of my book. And this I'm reading specifically from page 137. So if it's about wanting to have a baby, I recommend taking those 90 days, as for example, I work with my couples, to strengthen, build, balance hormones and so on. But let's say that it's just the fact that you're a couple that just wants to increase your intimacy level, wants to have a healthy sex life within the two of you. Know that it is important to have a good frequency of sex during the week. So I would say a minimum of twice a week would be necessary, since we know that when we're trying to conceive, the sperm quality decreases when you have sex more than 4 times a week. That's a part. That's with couples that want to conceive. But in general, if you're a couple that just wants to have a good, healthy sex life, minimum twice a week, in my eyes, would be necessary. Now, I don't know if you found in your research there also, Kathy, the following. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
It states, and I have to find the actual source again. I forgot where I actually, where this source of this research was done. However, it states that when the sex is healthy, when the sex is good in a relationship, it's only 20% of the relationship. But if the sex is quote unquote bad, it's 80% of the relationship. That's how important it is. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. I did not know that, but I do know, just in past readings, where couples have shared about their sex life, that they said that, if it's not frequent, then the relationship itself is not balanced. So, and I also read that a lot of women, Dr. Julissa, are wanting to have sex more than their male partner.
I'll explain why in a moment.
What are your thoughts about that? Because I've heard that, and a lot of people have said that, if we don't have sex as much in our relationship, and it's not balanced, it's not good. What are your thoughts on that one?
I absolutely agree. And if we're talking about, right, I absolutely agree. Now, if we're looking at the stages or ages of a man and a woman, a man younger, teenage years, 20s, let's say even the 30s, tends to show that supposedly he has much more sex drive than a woman would. Women were just more reserved. And of course, I've had many patients that, behind closed doors in my office will definitely share that they want to be that intimate, but are reserved because they understand that they can't be with just every single person that they desire. And so they practice more self-pleasure, I would state, than maybe sometimes even men do, because men may practice it with another partner, but women may tend to then hold themselves back and practice more of self-pleasure, with still the desire for intimacy being there and very heightened. So if we're looking at more mature couples, Kathy, this is what happens. A woman now past her 30s, 35, is now very understanding of her body, knows what she needs, how she needs to be touched. If she's a woman that's already entering perimenopause or is in menopause, they say that is our sexual peak, that it's what's quote unquote been stated in past terms and studies and articles and so on. Supposedly because if a woman is now not worried about becoming pregnant, knows and truly understands her body, knows exactly what she needs to be touched, how she needs to be touched, what she needs to achieve orgasm, and so on. And she no longer has that fear of, for example, let's say pregnancy, if she didn't want to have that issue there, then she's very much more free and hormonally, they say, much more open to having that openness as far as sexuality goes. What happens with maybe sometimes men is that if they haven't lived a truly healthy lifestyle, if diet has actually affected their cardiovascular health, their circulatory health. I literally just put an article up recently regarding impotence and erectile dysfunction and so on, and how that's very much related to circulatory system health. So if with age, if they haven't been taking care of themselves, aren't doing the proper things to maintain good blood flow and so on, erection is most likely not as strong and so on. And so they feel that hindrance in that department and feel that they don't have as much desire, because when the blood is truly circulating well around the body, heat and warmth is also felt throughout. And that is part of feeling a desire for sex. That's part of feeling a desire for intimacy, right? So if that's the challenge there and he's a bit older and so on, then his desire probably for intimacy has lessened. Probably if he feels he's not as virile or not as vital sexually, has that sexual vitality like before, where maybe he's even done with ejaculating then and that heightened pleasure the first time, and it takes him a very long time to recuperate another erection to be able to perform a second time. That can also pull him back from probably wanting to perform as often, while a woman is, quote unquote, as they say, always ready kind of thing. And so that can be part of that. So I know exactly what you mean because I've heard it numerous times from female patients that she wants it more than him.
Good information that you're sharing there, Dr. B. So love that. Now, I want to go back, if I may, back to number 3, where we talked about proper frequency of sex. Let's talk about, because you mentioned something that I find very interesting. You talked about the dietary changes. What are some of the things that you're speaking with your couples about in order to have a proper sex life, a healthy sex life? What are some of the dietary changes that you're speaking of, and why is that so important?
Absolutely. Oh, what a wonderful question you've just stated there. Wonderful. Well, let me begin with the man, for example. If I'm working with a gentleman that is having challenges with, for example, erection, that we're going to want to bring in foods that are going to help maintain healthy cholesterol levels, just maintain good circulatory blood flow in general. That's going to incorporate bringing, actually eliminating fatty foods from the diet, fried foods from the diet. Many times I have come across a certain correlation between a man who's having challenges with impotence and erectile dysfunction and also having challenges with high cholesterol and high triglycerides. There is a perfect example of how there's an issue with circulatory blood flow if there's fatty deposits in the bloodstream and things are not flowing the way they should, not good blood flow to hands, feet, head, genital region, which is what we're discussing here. And so that's an issue. So as far as bringing in the right foods, I'm going to recommend that they first reduce also a lot of the animal meats and bring in greens and vegetables and more red fruits and vegetables as well, which push and stimulate circulatory blood flow. So those are some of the things. As far as lifestyle habits, okay, a man who smokes cigarettes is going to be doomed eventually to have challenges with his sexual function. That is a given. Can't go around it. It just is. So do keep that in mind. We're talking about hardening the walls of the arteries, and that's going to constrict blood flow to extremities like the genital region and is going to affect his erection.
Wow. Did not know that. Did not know that. Now, when we speak of a woman and the dietary changes that we must implement for a healthy sex life, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And they pretty much are the same. So let's discuss a woman let's discuss a woman that, for example, has a bit of frigidity or has problems achieving orgasm. A woman, let's say that's diabetic even. And let me state that because I've had a lot of diabetic women that tell me that their sex drive has diminished. And one of the main things that we notice in a diabetic is very weakened circulatory blood flow. So if we remember that the G-spot in a woman is comprised of erectile tissues. Let me repeat that. The G-spot in a woman is comprised of, as far as already science has shown us, comprised of erectile tissues. So erectile tissues, just what a man, for example, has to be able to achieve an erection. She also needs that stimulated good blood flow to the loins, to the G-spot, to the genital region, so that she can have heightened desire and pleasure. Same thing. A lot of people don't know that. So yes, it's as if the G-spot, quote unquote, becomes erect as well, becomes engorged, becomes filled with that blood flow. She has healthy blood flow, and so she's able to achieve that ultimate heightened pleasure, multiple orgasms even, if she has good healthy blood flow to the loins and the genital area. So the same thing applies if I'm working, let's say, with a diabetic or even a woman, again, who may have a weakened circulatory system. A woman with varicose veins has a weakened circulatory system. Women with spider veins, women who have also high cholesterol or high triglycerides, weakened circulatory blood flow will most definitely cause them to, yes, feel a lessened sexual desire, and they won't feel that heightened pleasure as far as orgasm is concerned as much as if we stimulate the blood flow and then can even achieve not just one orgasm, but then can also try to achieve that multiple because the blood flow is healthier.
Great information. Love that. Now, I also want to go a little bit further in the topic where we talked about the woman's ovulation. And you stated here that you recommend that the intimacy of sexual intercourse be reserved for 9 days during the woman's ovulation cycle to increase your chances of conception. So let's talk about that. Let's give Source Nation some information in reference to conception and how important is it to understand your ovulation. Now, I will say this, Dr. Julissa, you know, during the time that I conceived my son, I really wasn't as concerned with the ovulation calendar, but I know as people are trying to have children, that is something that the doctors have stated in past that you must pay attention to that. So let's talk about that and give Source Nation some information on the ovulation cycle and why is it so important for us to really pay attention to that.
Okay. My approach to fertility is very traditional, and I understand that there are a lot of scientific updates and so on and so forth with regards to that, but getting pregnant and having a baby, let's just look at from the beginning of time, has been something so natural and something that is so inexplicably wonderful that there's really not so much that we have to make it so technical, and difficult to look at. Does that make sense? So in my approach with regards to, a woman and her ovulation cycle, I tell my patients immediately to come off of the apps, to come off of these other ways that, that you can kind of plug into your phone. Yes, I'm definitely ovulating around this time and that's it. And let's make, it becomes very mechanical and so on and so forth. So I really do it in a very organic, natural way, according to the body of each woman, to have them calculate and have a really wonderful window to know when they should be having intimacy with their partner to try to conceive. And so it's 22 years of doing this, and it's worked just fine. And the human body just does what the human body does. And so I've detailed it in the last chapter of my book, exactly the window that the woman needs to look at with regards to right after her period and so on. So they can find that there in the last chapter, chapter 11 of my book. However, what I give them and explain there that they will see in detail is an actual 9-day window. So in the time of the first 90 days, when I'm strengthening a couple, balancing hormones, doubling sperm count, strengthening uterine walls, cleansing blocked tubes, and doing everything that needs to happen for the two of them to have heightened fertility, I then tell them that in that time, not to have intimacy 9 days, each one of those 3 months while we're working. Now, once we're done with those 90 days of really balancing and strengthening, and why 90 days? Because the cells tend to regenerate in the body every 90 days. So once you start a different process of, let's say, eating or healthy lifestyle or so on, always give it 90 days for your body to show you a turnaround. Once those 90 days have hit, we then calculate what those 9 days are. And then I had a couple term it beautifully that it's the baby marathon time. So then they have to have sex for 9 days straight, Kathy. And the good thing is that they're happy to and really excited and energized to. But why is that? Also, because during the 90 days, I've fed them. We've worked with them utilizing and feeding their bodies aphrodisiac herbs, which I've mentioned here a number of times, things like damiana, and so on and so forth. So things that actually increase the sexual desire, and they're bouncing off the walls, wanting to attack each other, and it's a beautiful thing. So you it's a beautiful thing. So you want that to happen, and so it's 9 days straight that I tell them to have intimacy, so that I, quote unquote, we don't fail. And so that's why I've had a 100% success rate, which is a blessing in these 22 years in helping couples conceive. So, and I don't stop helping them until they have that baby. So we keep going until then. And yes, so it's 9 days straight that I recommend them do. And yes, the woman's most fertile time are the 3 days in the middle. But the wonderful thing about the body is this. So sperm stays alive inside of a woman about 24 hours. So if she's due to ovulate, Kathy, tomorrow, and she has sex today, she'll still get pregnant tomorrow from the sperm of today. Because it's still alive. And so that's the wonderful thing. That's why I try to rule out any risk of not conceiving. I try to rule that out as much as possible by giving them such a good window for them to have intimacy. So it's 9 days of a baby marathon, 9 days straight of sex, anything they want to do. Yes, anything.
And I would think, while they are preparing themselves for the 9 days.
Yes.
To me, I think that this is the time where you can truly be in tune to not only self, but in tune to each other and what it is that you want your relationship to be once baby arrives. Yes. So this is preparation time.
Yes. Yes.
That I see. What are your thoughts on that? Am I right about that?
You are absolutely on point about that, because I actually stated in a television interview I had on Connecticut News, CNT News, there, that I was also interviewed with regards to that, and they were a bit shocked that I mentioned that the emotional aspect is very much a part of fertility as well. If one of the two, yes, and I state that in one of my chapters in my book, where I talk specifically about emotions, about how the emotions affect the body physically, and how emotions can also affect your chances of fertility. So I discussed there how if one of the partners is holding on to anger, is holding on to unresolved forgiveness, is holding on to resentments, in those 90 days when we're first working, before they try to have baby, before the 9 days of sex straight to have that little baby marathon going on, it's a time where we work on letting a lot of that go, letting go a lot of that emotional burden, things that are blocking them from actually coming close enough to achieve that true bond that they want, bringing all the walls down, where yes, we love each other, yes, we're on the same page and we want to have this baby, but then there are other things in the way that are blocking them. And the body responds to those emotional blockages. And that's what we have to lift and remove brick by brick during those 90 days to have them be closer. Absolutely.
Great information that you are sharing, Dr. Julissa. I love it. I love it. So essentially, Dr. Julissa and I, when we are on, we usually talk about topics either we have experience personally, or maybe we know of a friend. So I'm getting ready to share something very personal that I think is very ideal to this conversation, especially with me. Of course, I'm divorced and been divorced now for 9 years. But I remember when I decided that I wanted to date again, and this was probably maybe a year and a half right after my divorce, and met a gentleman. Well, we met all over again because we actually had a brief time dating when we were in high school. And So we reconnected a year and a half later after my divorce. And this gentleman I actually dated for almost 3 years. And I thought that we were actually going to marry, but we didn't. Prior to us talking about being exclusive and being intimate, our very first time together was very hard, very difficult. And it was because, Dr. Julissa, I hadn't let go of being divorced, and I haven't truly forgiven my ex-husband at that time. So being with someone else in an intimate way, I really didn't know how to do that. And so in this conversation, listening to you, and then of course working through all of that over the 9 years, and truly, really trying to figure out what was going on, it was the fact that, my emotional state, I wasn't ready to be intimate. And I couldn't perform. So I want to talk about that. If we have some family members that are at that state, and why we have to be emotionally ready. Because to me, I think that has some difficulty trying to perform in the bedroom and you can't. So what are your thoughts about that?
You've said it exactly. You've said it perfectly and are absolutely on point. What goes on in our subconscious, what our heart is holding on to with regards to negative emotions, and positive emotions work on the body just the same on a positive way. However, if we're holding on to certain things that are burdens in our subconscious, the body listens to what's happening there and will respond. Say the best example I can give is, for example, when a person is frightened, they may urinate on themselves. So in other words, the emotion came first and the physical reaction comes later. Holding on to for a prolonged amount of time to anger, to what I feel you might have been holding on to at that time was unconsciousness, thought, emotion, which is building up a wall and blocking your feelings because you were afraid to maybe get hurt again. You were afraid of someone getting too close because you don't feel the same way towards someone or some people the way you used to. Maybe even saying I care for you or I love you is hard. But it's a building up of a wall, a blockage, where you're just afraid to let someone in. And even though you feel for them and you want to tell them that you care for them and love them, you don't, because of that fear of probably being hurt again and so on. And that wall, that numbing feeling of not wanting to feel so you don't get hurt. And that affects the reproductive system directly. That actually affects the ovaries and the testes in a man, unconsciousness, thought, emotion. And I've also detailed that here in my chapter on emotions within my book. So you're absolutely on point with regards to that, not being able to open up because that wall, that emotional wall was up.
Wow. I like that. Good information shared there. Now, Dr. Julissa, as we are wrapping our conversation up tonight, what more could you share with Source Nation and everyone listening in regards to proper frequency of sex?
If you are a couple first and foremost that actually wants to conceive, that wants to have the baby that both of you so dream of, take some time to build your bodies. Do get my book, read on how to take that approach, and give yourself 90 days to build yourselves. Have the intimacy of also touching and feeling one another, and not to not have sex for 90 days. That's not what I'm stating. But the frequency of the sperm quality is something that we want to keep healthy as well. And know that if a man is having sex more than 3-4 times per week and he's trying to have his partner conceive, then it is best to really reserve that healthy sperm quality and do no more than maybe twice a week in the meantime. And then once you've reached that point that both of you have balanced and strengthened enough, after the 90 days, take that time to really, truly work on conceiving that baby, as I say, during that 9-day cycle, that next month, after those first 90 days. Now, if you're just a couple that just wants to go closer in intimacy, wants to have a closer bond, wants to just have a more fulfilling sexual intimacy between the two of you, then most definitely remember that that physical part is necessary. If the sex is not good, it is 80% of the relationship. However, when it is, it's 20% of your relationship. And so let's maintain that by remembering that intimacy is important. Then if it's not conception that's needed, then yes, be intimate more than twice a week, to at least minimum twice a week, to be able to maintain that bond and that desire and that mystery between the two of you that has to maintain to have a healthy relationship.
Good information, Dr. Julissa. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And if you would, please, we always like to leave either with some encouraging word or maybe some tips and facts that we have not shared in tonight's conversation. If you wish to contribute, we'd love to do so at this time.
Know that everything that you carry yourself doing in life, whether it's your dietary choices or it's your lifestyle habits, all of that affects your health in every way, including reproductive system and in the bedroom with intimacy. So do take all of those things into account. And you can all find the information of everything that we're sharing here tonight and in the next few weeks in my new book, The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility. You can find that on Amazon.com. And I am honored to continue doing and talking about these next principles that we're about to discuss, and things are going to get a little bit more hot and heavy. I'm excited, Kathy. I'm excited.
Yes. I'm excited as well. I am. Dr. Julissa, thank you so much for coming in tonight and definitely giving us some great information on tonight's topic, which was proper frequencies of sex. And then just leave the Source Station once again. How can we get more information about you and continue to support you in your efforts?
Forever welcome. I'm honored to be here and to continue doing this. You can all find my information at drjulissa.com. That's drjulissa.com. You can also reach my receptionists and team 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at the phone number 212-923-6366 to place an appointment if you have a health concern or want to schedule a phone consult, Skype, or video consult with me, or even come in office to see me in one of my offices across the U.S. And I'm honored to be here again with all of you again next week.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Julissa, again, thank you so much for coming in, giving us some great information. Again, Source Nation, she is coming every single Thursday. We are talking about some great topics, our principles for a healthy reproductive and fertility life. Tonight's conversation is all about proper frequency and sex. So, Dr. Julissa, thank you so much. We'll see you again next week.
Looking forward to it. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Well,